Yeah, you're a presenter, Liz. You're on now. So. Can anybody hear Liz? Maybe if I could just get a few of you to respond in the send part, that would be great. Yeah, they can hear you, Liz. So I'm not sure, Liz, if anybody, some people can hear you and some can't. They still can't hear you, it seems, Liz. Is that correct, people on?
Can we hear me now?
Can hear you now, Liz.
Okay. Okay. Can you see me?
And we can see you, Liz.
Oh, excellent. I'm sorry for that. I don't know what's happened. Some of our video has gone down at the university, and it's just, I don't know what the issues have been. So welcome to this town hall discussion. It's great to have those of you online. There's much to discuss, and I'm hoping that we will have the next hour. I know many of you are working, and you've taken time out of a very busy day to join us. During this next hour, we're going to cover the vote of non-confidence in the council, potential future changes to ACOT, and any other business on your minds. We wanted to ensure that you would have an opportunity to ask both Maggie and I questions. You are seeing Maggie on one screen and me on another, because she will handle any of the questions around the legislation. I will handle the direction of the conference. I'm going to just give a few opening remarks just to set the stage, and then we will open it to you because this is what it's all about. Before we begin, though, I'd like to acknowledge Martin Anderson's valuable contribution to the Council and to the ACOT as a whole, and to thank him on behalf of all of us. We appreciate all his efforts. And the other thing I want to say is we're all in this together as occupational therapists. We're working for what's best for our profession, and I know the Council and all of us there hope to continue to do this. I want to confirm, however, as you've heard, that our registrar has announced the vote for the non-confidence under the Act. The vote has been triggered, and your decision is what will dictate the future direction of this Council. The vote is now open until March the 3rd, and I encourage you to look at all the information and make your decision wisely. However, what the Council is continuing to do, and I think that's important, is that we want to ensure that the due process of the vote is fully followed. We want to continue to support our members in a seamless way, and we want to continue our work to put ACOT on the course for a successful future. If the 2/3 of the eligible voters, there would be a call for nomination and an election. If it doesn't happen, we will continue on the current electoral cycle, of which you will be seeing the announcement directly after the vote. We actually have a continual renewal, and this is an ongoing process that we do. It has had a slight delay in the announcement because of the vote, and we need to prioritize those kind of things. We hope that many of you will serve on the Council, and we hope that no matter what happens, this has opened up the opportunity for many of you to consider volunteering, both on the ACOT Council and on the SAOT Council, because it's very, very important. And as I say, I cannot say anything, but I think it's important, and it's important for the future of all of us. ACOT has been, I'm being asked to sit closer to my mic. I hope this is, I'm seeing some comments. I have no echo. Maggie, is there a way of fixing the echo? Apparently Fort McMurray has an echo.
Yeah, we'll just check and see what we can do, Liz. I have Kirsten on.
Okay, thank you. You know, we have been looking at a number of changes, but you've also seen some news coming out. One of the driving factors of this non-confidence vote was certainly the consideration that we were having at looking at protection of the public through having the recreation therapists and looking at things around recreation therapy. You'll have noticed by the e-news that we released that we have disbanded that committee. We heard you loud and clear. We have a leadership committee in place, and that leadership committee will hopefully look at issues like this and how ACOT's to respond. ACOT's response is a very different response than what SAOT can have. We are there and we are regulated on what we can do in terms of regulation of the protection of the public. Just to give you an example, I sit on a couple of subcommittees for SAOT. In SAOT, I advocate through what the practice looks like and what are the things we can do. And I advocate for the profession very vocally. We need to be on documents going to the minister. We need to do this. At ACOT, it's a very different perspective. It is about protection of the public. And how do we do that? But it also provides another venue for us to really think about how we move this profession forward. It's a collaborative effort, and I think that that becomes very important. During the time that we have also had these discussions, we've been working on a strategic plan. And the strategic plan is a very important document that will allow us to move the profession forward and think about it in a different way. Remembering that the two bodies, ACOT and SAOT, have very, very different purposes. And the difference is in that one is protection of the public and the other is very much moving the public through advocacy. And so we are looking at strategically, how do we do it? How does the college do it in a way that will move it forward in a different way? So the plan that you are going to see, and it will be on the website soon, includes relentless focus on regulatory compliance, shared values development, and I thank Maggie for helping us put all this together. A broader scope college. How do we partner with things? How do we partner even with SAOT? Because technically we're separate organizations, and that's legislatively put in place. What kind of leadership? How do we invest our resources in developing a strong leadership position with other stakeholders, notoriously the public, because we're here to protect the public, occupational therapists, and certainly our government partners. It is really critical that we are visible because we're a smaller profession, and the college, under its mandate of protection of the public, is well noted by the government as doing a really good job. And I have to thank Maggie, because many of these, our ability to do this has been done because of our current, our registrar at the moment, where we have not had any major issues come up with members. She's had, and she should really talk about, I'm going to have her talk about how we've been dealing with it, which has given us some resources to not only support SAOT on special projects, but to also look at developing, and we looked at it, the first major strategic plan for ACOT in 10 years. So Maggie, do you want to talk a little bit about why we've had those resources?
So we've been very fortunate, Liz, that with discipline, we have been using the alternative complaint resolution, and that has been very successful for us.
Yeah. I think that's really made a difference, because we really are here to protect and serve the public, and that's what the college does. And we've been at a very important juncture period where we have had some resources to try and look at and think where we should be going next. We also have, and we did hear you loud and clear, the mission and vision statement were changed. You saw that come out earlier, and I restated them again as they have been approved, and you saw that on the last e-news from the council. We also have looked at 2 different committees, which we're hoping to have many of you on, because one, how do we deal with these leadership issues? That's a really important concept, and we need to have a broad discussion on that. And the other is, how do we advise members about competency and practice without putting Maggie in a very difficult position, because she is to enact the legislation, whereas we need a venue for our members to have discussion. So we've been moving in a number of multitude of areas, and I do want to say, although the issue of recreation therapy has overshadowed, all of these other things have been happening at the same time. And so I think it is about evolution. It is about change. And I said at one of the earlier ones, and I know some of you, when I'm saying the names come up, have been at previous town halls, but I want to make it really clear. From my perspective, and I can only speak for myself, but I think I represent the council. I've been an occupational therapist since 1973. I have, I had a diploma, a BOT, which was unusual, and a short-lived degree. And I'm very proud of my profession, and I want to see my profession engaged at multiple tables where they can influence. And I think we need to really look at what are other ways we can. The college's mandate is to protect and serve the public, and that's the place we can do it. So how do we do that? How do we engage? How do we do it? And those are the kinds of decisions that the college has been working very hard on. SAOT has a very, very different role, and we're proud to support them because their advocacy for the profession, their continuing education courses, absolutely critical to how we move forward as a profession. So I think we are dealing with multiple issues, but I certainly am here, and we want to have these kind of dialogues on a regular basis to answer any questions. So because I'm well aware that some of you are in lunch hours, I want to respond to your questions. So if you would like to ask questions, I'm hearing, can we mute the mic off and on? I will start muting my mic when, if Maggie's talking about the legislation. Okay, so See, an ACOT ends regarding protection of the profession no longer exists, as those policies related to communication with membership and other organizations have been lessened or significantly removed. It appears that this started 2011 to present. Does the current council see this as a gap, not only to the public? Who else is ensuring? Okay, I'm reading the question as it comes forward. I don't know who should start, Maggie or myself, because she's been here all along since this happened.
Maybe I'll just.
Okay, I'm going to mute.
Liz, if you want to mute yours. Okay.
Okay.
So I think in 2011, Don, what happened was council determined that it was going to step away from the model, and this newer council that's now in place has decided to step back towards the Carver model, so the policy manual is being redone.
Okay, can you hear me again? Somebody said they couldn't hear you, Maggie. But what we'll say is that the council that was in place in 2011 stepped away from the Carver model, which is part of the was part of the original council direction. This new council has relooked and said the Carver model, it was happening, it was a pseudo Carver model, which happened that it was impacting those ends and means. This current council has moved back towards the Carver model, is taking training on the Carver model, and all of those things are being reworked and will be back in place. That was part of the strategic plan and part of the thinking around the strategic plan, because we saw that as a gap that had started to occur, that the board had moved away, the council had moved away from the Carver model, which was in place when it came under HPA in 10 years ago. And so we're putting all of those things back. And that's part of the work and the mandate of the folks that we're using to deal with our strategic plan and support us in that process, to ensure that we will be a strict Carver model that follows the mandate. The one thing we have changed is that we're moving to a different style of minute taking, so that we can be more transparent with members and have what our discussions are more reflected on the website. That we can do within the context of Carver. Yes, Annette, I agree. Carver model has nothing to do with regulation. It is about governance, and that's the model we've been using. So we really just want to, I mean, our mandate is to protect the public, but we want to do it in the best way, that where we look at the big picture items, and the Carver model supports that kind of thinking. So it is a model that's used for governance. It's not about protection of the public. Thank you. And Don, thank you for the question. Can you assure us that protection of the public is priority? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's how we do it. That's what we do. That's what the council exists for. And critically, that's what we're noted for. This council is well respected, not this council, our registrar, because she is the face of the council, is well respected by the government. That's why they came forward with the recreation therapy to us, and Meg can talk about the sequence, but that's why they came forward originally with the issue, is because we are seen as one of the model groups in the province that has moved forward in some of the strategies we've used to protect the public very effectively. And so that is the key, and that's what we want to do, and that's what we consider, and it is what we are all about. And that's a very different thing from the role of ACOT, and I keep saying that because it is. What are the benefits? What would be the benefits of regulating both? That's not currently on the table at the moment. The regulation would be that we are seen, the benefit is only that we are seen as leaders. There are colleges where the government only in one instances have forced adjoining, but where they have asked other colleges to take out on other professions. It just merely establishes a venue for us to be and support recreation therapy as they develop. I don't, the benefits for us are with government, seeing as leaders in this area. We have never agreed, and I must make this really clear to do it, we have agreed to have discussions about it. And that's a very different thing. And it's one of the things that we can move forward with, and we're not at this point, but what I'm saying is we were invited to be part of these discussions. Do we think the public deserves the regulation of recreation therapists? Absolutely. Recreation therapy is a very diverse group. Not all have qualifications, and the leaders in recreation therapy are trying to move it forward to bring up a standard in a venue where the public will be protected. We were invited to be part of those discussions. We thought it was good because we were seen by government as leaders in the area. Our members have spoken, and that committee has been disbanded. The minutes from November and December are available on the website. Thank you for the question. And we will be, because we changed the venue, we will be publishing, Maggie will have this meeting in particular up on the website. I've given her permission to do that. Maggie, I'm going to mute. I think, can you talk about the legislation and how the legislation would work and the impact with the recreation therapy issue? I think there still is there's lots of questions coming up, and I think you're the best person to answer that from the legislative perspective. I'm going to try and mute this so they can hear you.
So just with regards there's a little microphone that says audio is that you can press.
I'm seeing that, yeah.
Okay, great. So with regards to the government, they approached the college in the fall of 2015 with the idea of forming partnership with the recreational therapists. There's some questions about has ACOT been directed to include RT? We haven't been directed. We've been asked to explore the partnership, and really what has to happen first is the government really has to decide too whether or not recreational therapists need to be licensed and whether they pose a threat to Albertans. And really that's what legislation is about. It's about ensuring our practitioners have a certain level of education, that they're engaged in continuing competence program, and that they abide by a standard code of ethics. And if they don't, then they can be disciplined. And my sense is that rec therapy, because anybody sort of can call themselves a rec therapist, that the government is looking at whether or not that needs to be a protected title and whether or not they pose any risk to Albertans.
I'm seeing that. So the issue for us was we were just going to be part of that discussion. We think that's the difference. And we have, at this point, we are not going further with those discussions. We want this leadership committee, which we formed, which will be primarily clinicians from across the province. And we're hoping we get a significant number of volunteers. That will be one of the issues they will discuss at the table. And so, Maggie, there's another question from Gwen. Can you take that one?
The difference between the Health Professions Act and the Health Disciplines Act, they're two different acts. And right now the government's determined there will be no more colleges under the Health Professions Act, and there's 14 professions that are looking for regulation under that act, and so the government is actively looking for partners for those 14 different professions if they determine they need public protection. In terms of fees, we don't anticipate there would be a fee increase. And when we're talking about what OTs do and about recreation therapists do, just from a legislative perspective, the legislation defines sort of what OT services look like. If rec was to be regulated at some point, they then would have a statement about rec what rec therapy services would look like. As well, you know, there's restricted activities that we've been granted the privilege of providing. If rec therapists are again regulated, they would be either granted or not granted some of those restricted activities, and that again would be up to the government to decide.
I think Annette has a very interesting question, and thank you, Annette. Is this being seen as a backdoor way to gain control? They are developing as a separate profession. I think it was a way of being part of the discussion as they continue to develop and help raise their standards so the public is protected. Right now, there's a variety of qualifications, and interestingly enough, being at the table, I think, is one of the ways of helping influence that direction if the government decides that they are going to begin to regulate them. There has been a lot of emphasis, and I'm going to give a little bit background, and I think you've heard this from me before, Annette and a few others. There's a bit of emphasis on the development of recreation therapists at the moment. There are two programs here in Alberta, one at the University of Alberta, which is making major changes to try and meet the international standards, the American standards. The other is at the University of Lethbridge. The government funded a separate program at the University of Lethbridge, and interestingly enough, it's a four-year baccalaureate degree. The first 2 years may be done at Northwest College in Edmonton, and students can transfer to the University of Lethbridge to complete their degree. The interesting part of that is, yes, the government has put a lot of money into that, both the previous government and this current government. So obviously there's a momentum going around recreation therapists. But the interesting part of that, and I can say that, is that those same students would not be accepted into the program at the University of Alberta because the qualifications they're getting at Northwest College would not meet the physical education and recreation faculty's qualifications. So it's an interesting dialogue, but there's obviously momentum from recreation therapy at this point from the leaders in that field that they want to raise the standard. They want to ensure the public is protected, because right now that there is nothing to say you can't call yourself a recreation therapist. We want to be, my perspective has always been better to be at the table talking about it. There is nothing saying we will say yes, but we were just to talk about it. And I have always had perspective, better we talk about it. I'm sitting, and let me give you another example. I'm sitting at a table for ACOT, which is a very different mandate. Please remember that. I do not represent ACOT when I'm there. It was a proposal for a leadership model that is being put together by a number of consortiums, and I was asked by Robin to sit on one committee, which turned into two. What's gone forward is a new structure for how mental health should be looking across this province. And I emphasize this because of evolving. Things are evolving all over the place, and we need to have a strong voice there for many capacities, protection of the public and for other initiatives as they evolve. So the ACOT part of me comes through in that I was sitting at a table, they put a proposal for a new leadership model because they don't have a mental health board. And as you know, mental health in this province is pretty low on the health totem pole. It's there, but it's certainly not where it could be. And the committee that went forward was comprised of doctors, psychiatrists, nursing, program leaders, social workers, psychologists. I was the only OT there. When they brought the draft forward from this committee, they were using examples of professions that should be working with psychotherapy, psychotherapeutic techniques. Occupational therapy was left out of it, but social work was not, nursing was not. They were being used as examples. The document that went forward, because we're sitting at that table, or I was sitting at that table with support from ACOT, went forward with our name attached. That's one issue, and as I say, we all need a strong ACOT to move those kind of initiatives forward. Protection of the public is similar in the way we want to have a voice in how that develops, and we are well respected. within that venue. But they're very separate functions, and that's sometimes very confusing when you begin to see it. I'm seeing a vote to see what OTs want in the province. At this point, we're not moving it forward, backed off from. So as we move things forward, we certainly will want your opinions coming in. There is no question of that. We've been hearing this very strongly. It's very clear, and you are important. That's why we formed the leadership group, where this will have these kind of high-level discussions will occur. We're hoping you're all part of it, or that many of you are part of it. It's a committee of 9, so there is only going to be one council member, as we predict, and Maggie to walk through legislation. The rest of it will be up to members of ACOT. Unfortunately, you're going to answer that one. Okay, hang on.
I just wanted to address Gwen's question. Gwen, the Health Disciplines Act is a different one than the Health Professions Act. So I'm not quite sure what the government thinks in terms of placing the rec therapists under the Health Disciplines Act. But again, they approached us, and it was in fall of 2015 that they approached us. So I hope that answers your questions, Gwen.
Okay, I'm hoping I'm clear again. Are there other questions? Yes, we are looking at past council member, and we appreciate past council members. We're hoping some of you come back to sit on these committees. We are re-looking at our governance model. We're looking at everything, policies, everything. It has shifted over time, and this council, and we have some really good public members on it as well, is really working hard to create the governance model that's going to work best for this profession. It has really been an unfortunate time where we know one of the things we need to do is how do we communicate with our members? How do we, because the college is, again, very different from the kind of communications that ACOT can have. So we're working very hard to establish those kind of communications, put more and more up on the site so that you can access them on a regular basis. And we, the minutes, as I say, we have now made the motion, as you saw on the last council note, that was written, that we have changed the way of taking minutes so that we will, by the next meeting, be able to more fully reflect on some of the discussions that occur. Other questions? Okay, we are trying, 2 questions. We're trying to get the last town hall meeting available. Unfortunately, we learned the morning of that meeting that there were some issues across the province with our clinicians accessing. So we scrambled here to put life size up, and there were some issues with access. We are going to try and get that so it can be posted online. There were some issues with the recording because they were scrambling to get enough sites, and obviously that wasn't the best technology when there were a lot of clinicians involved. But it was a last minute. If it had been through the telehealth, it was all set up and the record button was easy for us to do. So we are working on getting a transcript of that previous, and this one, because it's being recorded through the college, will be up on the site. Other questions? Oh, communication. Yes, there was some communication issues. There is a strategic communication plan that we will be using. We are also hoping to put, and Maggie is working it through because there are legislative issues around discussion boards and what we need. We're hoping to have a discussion board, and that's been one of the things we're moving towards right on the site. So as we have some of these issues start to arise, that we will we will be able to have those kind of discussions with our clinicians at the moment. We are also, as I say, the two committees that were interestingly enough in our thinking before this came up, and how do we do it differently. The practice advisory and the leadership, they were in different formats, but they were coming in so that we can involve more clinicians in dealing with some of these protection of the public issues as they come up. We had also taken some earlier, which has led to the development of the leadership committee. For example, in the diagnostic group that came out of the mental health OT, working as mental health therapists in the province, who really were finding the issue of diagnosis to have a major issue. We formed a committee, and that was from clinicians across the province, so they could have this dialogue and start working on this as an issue. This too will come forward to the leadership group. It's a really huge issue. Diagnosis is a huge issue. There are many layers on that one, but we need to have these important discussions, and you all need to be part of it. I came on this council again, and I say I feel like I'm the old person on the council. I'm a grandmother now, because I wanted to ensure that our occupational therapists in this province had voice, and they have voice in multiple ways. This is about protection of the public. The other is, and as I say, I do things for SAOT as well. So I'm absolutely committed to you all and to all of you having a voice. I think it's absolutely critical, and I'm hoping we generate more and more of you coming to sit on these committees, because I think they're absolutely critical that we are leaders. One of the things I've noticed over the years, and maybe it's part of being as mature a therapist as I am, in that I think we are the best therapists out there for a whole lot of things. And my concern is, how do we protect the public in a way that we are predominant in it? My concern is not just with recreationists. They're not all therapists. That's a title. It's with social work, doing case management. Are we being shut out of there? What about some of these other things? And I think there are many, many discussions we need to have. These other professions are emerging very quickly, and and we need to make our own profession stronger, our voice heard at all these tables. And that's always been my goal when I came back to ACOT. How do we make our voice around protection of the public, which is a very special venue, but very government driven? How do we make our voice heard in terms of what they're willing to hear? And what they're willing to hear are issues around protection of the public. So recreation folks may or may not be seen as a problem. They would like to, the leaders there would like to be seen as a problem. Because they want to raise their standard of their profession. They want to be recognized as a profession. That's not our issue. Our issue is being at the discussion where these kind of things happen. I think because I believe, and I have for a long time, you've got to remember I'm getting very mature, I believe this is the best profession in the world. I practiced for a while as a psychologist many years ago. I have that other credential. I believe OT is the best. I also believe we're born to be OTs. And I think that's the way we view the world. And I think the world needs us desperately as a defined profession.
I could just address.
You want to, I'll mute.
So Annette, I'm wondering if you could maybe while you're there just expand on why you don't believe our standards are up to date. Our standards apply to OT practice in any setting, and we're one of the few professions that actually in our statement, in our regulations, include our educators, researchers, administrators, and consultants. And when I look at standards, when I look at them in the past, I look at them in the future, although our practice areas may change, may look different, that no matter what profession you're in, you need to be able to be aware of the legislation that guides you. You need to be aware of the referrals and whether or not that referral is within your skill set. You need to be able to take a history, to come up with a treatment program, to evaluate that treatment program, and to document, to get consent. You need to be able to do a good discharge and be safe while doing all that. To me, those are standards, and those standards sort of apply time immemorial. We're not looking at competencies, which are different. And in the evolution of regulation, I know a lot of our other colleges move to what they call competencies, which is very different in my mind than standards. And what we're seeing now, for example, is the nurses and the physios going back to those universal standards. Governments are also in Ontario and Quebec beginning to ask, why do we have 29 standards? Why shouldn't the standards be the same for the doctors as they are for the OTs? Because no matter what profession or what area of practice, you need those cornerstones, and I think those are the cornerstones of our standards, which are, again, making sure that those referrals are proper and those assessments are done, and you're documenting and measuring your treatment plan, adjusting your treatment plan, and discharging appropriately. And in terms of the referral, Annette, I'm not quite sure what you mean. Instead of receiving referral, even if it's a self-referral from a person, then you have a referral.
I think, Annette, you are quite right in terms of they would all be signed off by HPA. We wanted to be a part of the early discussions around how they would be evolved, not just the final discussion, yay or nay. And so it was our way of looking at the early part of the discussions with the government, not when it actually gets approved or not approved by all the colleges, because of course it does go through all of them. But because we have many concerned members and we do, and SAOT certainly has understands this. We have members very concerned about the role that many recreation people are fulfilling, and we wanted to be in the early shaping discussions because we wanted to have the voice very, very early on, because part of the problem is by the time it hits the final table, we are only one voice of a lot of colleges. And so it became very important, or we thought it was very important for us to be in the discussions at a very early stage. And that was why we agreed to being part of that. So yeah, of course, it's going to go through all of the professions before anything happens. But the reality is we just wanted to be part of the shaping discussion. Delete's question, I'm trying to find it now. Okay, delete, I'm sorry, I'm looking for it. Council is not one, okay. I'm sorry, see my question above, I'm looking for the question, delete. Council has not been I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Delete, I'm sorry, is it about the councils? No, the council has not been disbanded at this point. We carry on until whatever the outcome of the vote is. If the outcome is that there's the non-confidence vote goes through, then there will be a call for a new council in its entirety. We would still stay on as council for the 30 days to get new people in place. If the non-confidence vote does not go through, you will then see in March, once the vote is through on March 3rd, you will see a call for council members. There are 3 positions that will be available. Okay, thank you, Dalik. I'm seeing the question now. In your opinion, does council and Maggie have enough governance? Yes, I think they have enough governance. But we're absolutely, as the strategic planning process, and this is, as I say, a really important. I'm very excited about as we start to see everything, including policies changing. I do believe that we are making, and that Maggie has a way of making really good, effective decisions now. I think we can improve significantly on how the council operates with transparency, how things can be done in a different way. I think this has been a lesson well learned, quite frankly, by the council. And it was where the communication should have occurred, how it could have occurred, and yes, we are working very hard to change all of those things. it's been a very difficult time, I can assure you. Okay, look lower. Okay, I'm looking. I'm sorry.
Address quickly, Liz, that I am still operating Delete as if while we're in transition to new policies, I'm operating under the old one, and in fact probably taking more to council now because I want to ensure they know that I'm operating the college in an open and transparent way. And as well as a regulated member, I too am bound by our standards and codes of ethics.
Delete, is that the response, or do you need more? I'm just, oh, you're typing, okay. And okay, I'll wait for these next two questions to come in. Governance is taken very seriously by everyone, and as I say, when we looked at the strategic plan and began to say we needed one, and we were in a fortunate financial position because of not having a lot of legal bills, quite frankly. It was a way of us beginning to say, okay, we need to really look at this and ensure not only the governance model, but how the transparency can occur and the communication was occur. And that's why the strategic planning is existing. We're very fortunate that, as I say, I said it and I'll say it again, that we had a pool of money which we normally wouldn't have had if we'd had a lot of issues come up in the protection of the public arena because of the legal fees and things, that we could do two things. One is look at strategic planning and ensure that all of those things are in place, although we are
You, Liz.
really important. Am I back on? Okay. I've got it back on again. Okay. Maggie, the question was actually that Annette had for you. It's about the review of the standards.
And the advice that we're actually giving is that standards maintain the same until there's a need for huge change. And the other thing that you have to remember about our standards is it's also approved by the government. And right now, government will be doing of the Health Professions Act with all the general provisions that apply to the 29 colleges. And then we're hoping to get on a cycle with them and we can address it at that time.
It is, that, and I will say that that's one of the reasons I believe, and I speak here on my own, that we need to be at any government table we can be at the point they will be opening HPA. And I think that's a very critical time. They haven't done that before. They're talking, it was supposed to be this year. It looks like it's going to be next year now, and all these reviews will start to happen then. I think it is very important, and I'm hoping that, as I say, we have put together, particularly this leadership committee, I'm hoping that we get you folks really engaged and can deal with some of these issues so that we are prepared. We can't do it in hindsight. We need to do it up front, and that's where we're trying to move. So hopefully that will occur. And yeah, absolutely. Will the council be more transparent? Thank you for the question again. Yes, absolutely. We're already trying. You've seen my musing on behalf of the council, regularly doing that. We're trying, as I say, we're going to put up a discussion board. The minutes will be coming with more of the discussion around them. You saw the last set of minutes from our January meeting, and I broke down what the discussion was in my musings so that you could have that information. And then we'll have a portal by which you could hopefully, in the next round of, as we're looking at technology again, that we can have those kind of discussions so that members can continue to be engaged on an ongoing basis. The reality is this has been a very interesting time for all of us. And it hasn't been an easy time. I make no bones about that. It's been a very long few months. Other question. No further action. A committee, yeah, please, yes, if you look at the minutes, we actually disbanded that committee, and at this point, we're not sitting on the development of anything on recreation therapy. Other questions? I'm seeing the time, and I know some of you have to get back to work, so I want to make sure we're answering all the questions. Okay.
Yeah, so Don, what they're looking at, and we don't exactly know for sure, is just the health profession itself that has provisions that apply to all colleges. So they won't be looking at regulations or the schedules. So right now we're in a waiting mode. Much like anything with government, they've anticipated it would be started in fall of last year. That's been put off to maybe fall of this year, and if in fact it moves forward or not.
Well, and the other interesting thing is this government is starting to move into an election cycle, so it could go off the table totally. We don't know. It's an interesting time when you see that kind of evolution that as I say, because we're seeing some strong moves by the previous governments to do some interesting combinations. We don't know whether this will come up with this government. If it does, we just hopefully will be there to have some of those discussions in some way. I want, and I have always said this, every government table to know there's an OT there. Occupational therapy needs to be at every discussion around health. Annette, I'm not sure what's going on. It's on the sound. Can you hear it now? Yes, we will, Dawn. If we get any, are you hearing me? Okay. We will be keeping you informed on any of the HPA developments. I think one of the things that we are looking at is of course, Maggie does wonderful e-news to keep us in situ, and we will also, one of the things, as you see, I've been doing more and more is writing, and I think that's important, updates to the members as we have them. I think that is absolutely critical, and I will continue to do that. Okay. The musings that I was talking about were on e-news, and that came out just before the announcement of the vote was the last one. I have not written since Maggie put the announcement of the vote, because we had this webinar and one tonight coming up. So I haven't done anything in the last week, but the previous one was just before the week before Maggie made the announcement on the non-confidence vote. And thanks, Dawn. I appreciate that. We are really, I think it's important. I think communication is important. That's, for those of you that know me personally, know that that's a big deal for me. And Maggie, good communication is really important to Maggie, and we come from slightly different perspectives, but we know we need to engage you and continually do that on an ongoing basis. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and thanks, Annette. Are there any last questions? I'm seeing one more typing. I just know that, as I say, I've been very conscious of the time. And
also, I just want to reiterate, Liz, if anybody has any questions, always feel free to contact me.
Okay, and Maggie, do you have, I don't have it in front of me, the date that my musings came out. There's a question of what was the date the news came out before yours. Do you have
December
that,
9th,
Andy?
December, February 9th.
And then we came out with, I came out with one after the council meeting, which was January 30th, and it was, what was the date of that one? That's the one that's being asked about. Sorry, I haven't got the browser open to find it for you. It was in the last 10 days, 2 weeks.
And if you want
I can
email, like
February 8th. Thank you, Kirsten. You just put that in. It came out February 8th. So that was the last, because we had the meeting on January 30th, and I wanted to ensure that you knew the context of what the motions were. And so that will be, the council is now meeting.
I think we've lost you again, Liz.
Basis. Okay, it just keeps going in and out. I apologize for that. The council has moved to meeting more frequently. We were having 2-day meetings, but we're going to meet more frequently on a, so it'll be 6 times a year. And then I think it's important, and one of the things that I have put into place, hopefully, is those kind of musings you saw February 8th, which helps you put the votes into context, because I think that's, the minutes have always been on the web, but it's not clear with this, with the style, what was the discussion about it. So I'm just, one of the things that I think is part of communication is giving you the context and a little bit more, and how we came to those kind of motions. So I'm hoping that is another way of communicating what's going on, and that you will feel part of the kinds of decisions that we're making on your behalf. At this point, Gwen, it is the motions that we published. We're moving to Robert's rules so that we can, and we made that motion so that we can put more information there. That's why I wrote what I wrote, so to give you the context of those motions. How many councillors are leaving? Maggie's putting up her finger so you can all see.
Looking for 3 new members.
Okay, just so in case you didn't hear, looking for 3 out of the 5 new members. We have at this point 25% of our membership are public members. Those are appointed by the government. That is one of the other things the government is beginning to look at, is the balance of public members on these kinds of things versus members of the profession. So we don't know what the outcome of that discussion is. We just know that our public members are making it very clear that they are seeing that discussion as well in terms of what's happening in their mandates.
And just from a legislative perspective, in Ontario and Quebec, they're looking at moving more to 75% public members and 25% professional members. So we're watching that to see if it'll be successful.
Technically, those members will start taking effect next October. They will go through the cycle. We always bring them on ahead of that so that they can see the structure, how the meetings operate. They come on officially October 1st. Yes, October of 2017.
Yeah. And in terms of the public members, one of our public members is done in April and the other one in October. And the appointments will be left up to the government, so we're not quite sure what the government plans to do. If you remember, we almost went 2 years without public members, but I'm thinking the government is improving their process. So.
It is an important issue that the government, and I thank Maggie for bringing that up, the government seems to be more efficient at doing this rotation. Our public members have been very helpful in terms of the process that we've been undergoing, and we hope to, because they ask questions we don't think to ask, and I think they're a very important part of the college. So, but I am concerned that we continue to have a voice that's strongly represented by occupational therapy. So I'm really interested in what that discussion is going to end up looking like. Although we are protection of the public, I really think it has to come, some of that voice needs to come from occupational therapists really strongly. So it's going to be an interesting time.
So maybe I'll just answer why the government's thought on non-competence. Of course, they're aware of it, and I'm in constant contact with them, ensuring them that the legislative mandate of the college is moving forward and that the Albertans are receiving ethical, competent occupational therapy services. And just to clarify, the vote of non-competence is to disband the entire council as a whole. Public members are not included in that because they're appointments, so it's just your elected members.
Yes, Carver is basically about motions, and that's why the communication has to be different, and that's why we're moving to this explaining of the motions, and we'll move to a different type of minute taking so we have accurate information through Robert's rules. That does change fundamentally how you take minutes, and then the communication will come through musings that explain those motions so that we have a very transparent way of funneling through what's happening at council to you, our members. Are there any last questions? Net. Thanks, Deb. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to further discussion over time. I think this is a good venue, and we will do the webinar format from here on. It just seems to be working a lot better. Sorry, I couldn't turn the volume off. Thank you, Todd. And are there any other last questions? Annette, I haven't talked to CAOT. I will talk to them. We've, you know, as again, we serve a very different function. CAOT is more like CAOT. That's their, and so does it work for us, Carver? It does work for us at this point. Is there other ways we could do it? I think that is certainly up for discussion within the council, but I think Carver is a good to try and get that big picture thinking and move us in the right direction. It is a well-recognized method, and it is, you know, but we have to, if we're going to use Carver, we have to actually use Carver, and I think there's been some back and forth, and we have to make a decision. And it could, Carver losing popularity, it could over time, and then we'll look at alternatives. I think you're raising a point. Things change over time, professions evolve, and I think it is a method that works for us at this point, but it will continue to evolve, and the discussion will occur long after my time, and that's what's important, that we have those discussions. Any last thoughts? Okay, thank you very much. I think we have answered your questions. We look forward to, yes, I absolutely, Dalik. I think it's about choosing the method. Carver I inherited Carver. It was Carver, my understanding, for a significant period. It has always been Carver. before my time back on council. And I think we need to just do it well. Whatever we do, we need to do it well. But we also need to ensure that members have information. Yeah, Maggie?
And if you have any questions when we sign off today, please make sure you feel free to pick up the phone and call me or email me.
Okay. So thank you very much. I think we will now sign off. We appreciate all of your attendance, and we know that these are important discussions. We're looking forward to our discussion tonight. We have another one if you have more questions at 7 p.m. We're using the same. I'm hoping I have less technology problems. I'm going to try the iPad instead of the computer and see what happens. So I hope you have a good rest of your afternoon, and I look forward to talking with you all at some point. We're all in this together. I can't reiterate that enough. We all want what's best for this profession, and that's why we're all here. So have a good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your questions, and I look forward to future discussions. Looks like we still have a few people on. I'm wondering if there are any other items of discussion.
If there's no other discussions, Liz, maybe I'll end the event then.
Okay.
Anything else, people? I think there's about 5 of you still on. Okay, thank you.